Now we come to the topic of collisions. What are collisions? Now, before discussing collisions, we have already said that hash function should be such that the key values should be mapped uniquely to a certain address space. But practically, is it so possible? It is not possible. So this is what a collision is. That means if I need to take an example to understand this, then I will take some key values or some data values to be as 74, 62, 23, 64, 14, 20, right? These are the different data values which are also possibly the key values as well. So I will assume these are how many data values? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I assume the size of my size of m to be as 7. So the value of m I assumed is 7, right? So supposing there are total 7 different locations in my array, right? So there are 7 different locations in my array, and I'm using the hash function to be the division hash function, which is k mod m, right? So for the first value, I will use h of 74, right? With h of 74, that means 74 mod 7. So when I divide 74 mod 7, obviously I will get as 4 as a result, right? So I will put 74 over here, right? Next, what we do is we take h of 62, 62 mod 7. It will give a value of 6. So 62 will be placed over here. Next, we take h of 23. So 23 mod 7 will give you a value of 2. Right? Next, we take the value of 64. 1. Right? Next, we take the value of 14. Right? Next, we take a value of 20. When we take the value of 20 and divide it by 7, we get a value of 6. But 6 is already occupied by some other data value, which is 62. This particular situation is known as collision, right? And how to resolve collision is all about that we are going to discuss after this particular topic. When two different data values or when two different key values basically map to a same index integer, then this particular thing is known as collision. And how to resolve or how to get out of this collision problem, or how to get out of the collision problem, is all about that we are going to study. Okay, now we come to the next topic, which is collision resolution technique. So we already know what is a collision, right? So a collision can be given as, like, there are two different key values, k1 and k2, right? And if the hash value that is generated using a hash function for these two different k1 and k2 key values is the same hash value, which is h1. That means the hash value for k1 is also h1 and the hash value of k2 is also h1. And if I consider that k1 occurs before k2 in the sequence of keys that is being given to you, if k1 occurs before k2, then obviously in the hash index h1, k1 is already present. And when k2 comes and when h1 is again generated for k2 as well, so where would k2 be placed? So this is what actually is a collision that we already know, right? So now the point is where to place this k2 in the hash table, because we have some free locations in the hash table and we need to place this k2 somewhere in the hash table. So the collision resolution technique is the technique which helps us to find the next free memory slot or the free memory bucket so that the K2 key can be placed in a different memory location, right, in the hash table. What are those different techniques in order to find the next free slot so that we can place the key value K2 into that free slot are the ones that we are going to discuss now. So over here, we will start with direct chaining or closed hashing. These are the two different techniques. The first one is direct chaining or closed addressing. So under this technique, this comes the topic that we will discuss will be separate chaining. It is also known by the term simply chaining, right? So it's either separate chaining or simply chaining. And in the case of open addressing, which is also known by closed hashing, this particular technique includes 4 different algorithms. The first one is linear probing, the second one is quadratic probing, third one is double hashing, and the last one is rehashing. So we will start with open addressing first and discuss each of them in detail with the help of an example. So now we are going to discuss the topic linear probing, which comes under the closed hashing technique, right? So in the closed hashing technique, first we have to understand the meaning of these two words. Linear probing. Linear means which is sequential in nature, and probing means examining something. Since we are dealing with the topic hashing, where there is a hash table, and hash table is what? It is a kind of array data structure. Array is what? It is a kind of contiguous memory location. That means over here, the probing term means examining memory locations in the hash table. That's it. And how is it done? It is done sequentially. So the probing of every memory location is done sequentially in case of linear probing. So how is it done? We will understand. So over here, I've written a kind of mathematical formula, h of k comma I equals to h prime k plus I mod m. We will understand one by one what are these things. This particular hash function is a secondary hash function, right? Then what is the primary hash function? Which one is the primary hash function? This h prime k. What is the primary hash function? The primary hash function, I will consider primary hash function to be as the division function, right? So if h prime k is the primary hash function and I've considered this as to be the division function, then obviously if this h prime k is generating a hash value for the key k, and that hash value, if I consider that hash value to be as I1, and if this I1 location in the hash table is already being occupied by some previous data value, then a collision has occurred. Then the primary hash function is not capable of producing a free slot for the key k value, right? So now we have to move on to the secondary hash function so that the next free slot can be generated for the key k, right? So if I observe closely, then I will see there is a variable I. This variable I basically ranges from 0 to m minus 1, where 0 is the lower bound of the array and m minus 1 is the last index of the hash table, right? So over here, since I ranges from 0 to m minus 1, if I start I with 0, then this particular secondary hash function will look similar to that of a primary hash function, because when I is equal to 0, then h prime of k plus 0 is basically h prime of k, and if I expand h prime of k, which is a division function, k mod m, then k mod m obviously will give you the same result what primary hash function would have given, right? Because if I put h of k comma 0, then this will be h prime of k plus 0 mod m. If I expand h prime of k, it will be k mod m mod m. Since k mod m already generates a remainder value which is less than m, obviously when you divide that number again with m, obviously the same remainder value is going to be generated, which is generated from the primary hash function. Simple. So if I put I equal to 0, that means this is functioning like a primary hash function, and if the primary hash function fails to produce a location which is a free slot, then obviously we will move on to the next free slot. Now how to move on to the next free slot, right? That is the main thing. So before we move on to discuss the next free slot, we have to understand that each slot of the hash table has two different kind of values. The first value is sentinel value, and another one is data value. The sentinel value is basically kept for understanding or for to understand whether the particular location of the hash table is empty or not. You can use any kind of notation that you want. You can use null. Someone can use some negative numbers. Some can use some other symbols to indicate whether this particular location is empty or not. That is up to your convenience. And the data value are the ones which are already being occupied by the hash table, right? So obviously, I will consider that each location of the hash table are initialized with null, right? Null. So if the sentinel value in my case will be null, and the data values will be the ones which I want to insert into the hash table, right? So if the primary hash function fails to produce a slot which is free, then the value of I is incremented, right? So obviously, if h of k comma 0 generates an index value I1 which is already occupied, then it implies that there is a collision, right? So when there occurs a collision, we have to move to find out the next free slot, and this is done in a very sequential manner. It is a kind of linear search. We actually have formulated linear search using this particular expression, right? So now we move on to h of k comma 1. See, h of k comma 1 will be h prime of k plus 1 mod m. So obviously, you know, if I say h prime of k was the one with value I1 which was already occupied, so I will put something like I1 plus 1 mod m. So I am basically, whatever location I have obtained using the primary hash function, I am just moving to the next location. I1 plus 1 means you are just moving to the next location and you are checking whether that particular location contains a sentinel value. That means it's a free slot, and if it finds a sentinel value, then obviously it is going to place the key k in I1 plus 1th location, in that location, or else the search will continue on and on and on until and unless there exists no free slot in the hash table. This is one of the conditions where we are going to stop. There's another condition we are going to come. So now after this hash function generates a new hash value, if this hash value is also occupied by some data value, then we'll move on to the next hash value. So this one will give you as h prime of k plus 1. So again, this the formula is h prime of k plus 1. H prime of k generated what index value or what hash value I1. So it will be I1 plus 2 mod m. So in this way, we are sequentially searching each and every locations, or we are sequentially probing each and every locations of the hash table to find the next free slot. Now the next question is that when we are going to stop. The first condition is that until and unless we find a free slot, we are not going to stop. And since we know that I ranges from 0 to m minus 1, we keep on incrementing I till we reach m minus 1. If I have a hash table with m equal to 11, that means the array indices are ranging from 0 to 10. That means if I have a hash table with size 11, then there are indices ranging from 0 to 10, right? This is what the scenario is. And if I say that the primary hash function generates for a key k as 7, right? And if the 7th location or the 7th index of the hash table is already occupied by some data value, then obviously we will move on to the secondary hash function and increment the value of I. Then after we move on to 8th location, it is also, we see that it is also occupied. We move on to 9th location, it is also occupied. We move on to the 10th location, it is also occupied. So after this, we know that we have reached to the end index of the hash table. Now this entire hash table is like a circular hash table, circular in nature. So the next hash location will be 0th location, right? Because if you see that this is 7 plus 1, this is 7 plus 2, this is 7 plus 3, obviously, and this is 7 plus 4, So if 7 plus 4 is 11, so 11 mod 11 will obviously give you 0. So obviously we are going to get back to 0, and this search will continue until and unless we find a free slot, or if there is actually no free slot available, then we will stop our search if we come back to the location from where we have started, right? If h of k1, which was the primary hash function, if I mark this as I1, right? If I mark this as I1, then this particular search will continue until and unless we reach I1. If I1 is reached again, we will stop there, because this is the place from where we have started our search. So we are not going to continue our search anymore. So that's the end of the search, and this is what a linear probing is. Obviously, you can understand the value of m is the size of the hash table over here, right? So now we take an example to elaborate the linear probing technique. Now we are discussing about linear probing example. So we have considered some key values, and the hash table size is 11, so m equal to 11. So we have considered a hash table which is ranging from 0 to 10. That means there are total 11 different hash locations. And the question is, we have to insert the keys into the hash table using a division hash function. So what we do is that we will understand, we will take each and individual key, and then we will try to map the keys into the index of the hash table, right? So we'll start with 72. So h prime of k, first we will be trying out with the primary hash function, right? So see what the primary hash function has to offer. So 72, the primary hash function actually is k mod m. So over here, the value of h prime, the k is 72. So presently the value of k is 72. So obviously then 72 mod 11. 72 mod 11 means it will give a location 6, right? So we'll check. Obviously we have to initialize null. So when it has generated a value 6, we will go to the 6th location and check the sentinel value. If it is a sentinel value, then that location is empty, and we are going to put the values, and we are going to put the value k into the 6th hash location, which is 72, right? So after we are done with 72, we will move on to the next hash value. The next hash value is 27. So 27 mod 11. So 27 mod 11 means 11 5, right? So if it is 5, we will move on to the 5th location and see if it is empty or not. Yes, it's empty. So we'll put 27 over here, right? Now we will move on to the 3rd key value, which is 36. So h prime of 36 equals to 36 mod 11. So 36 mod 11 means it's 3. So we move on to the 3rd location of the hash table, which is empty. So we'll put 36, right? So now we move on to the next key value, which is 24. So 24 mod 11 will give you 2. So we move on to the 2nd location. Yes, it is empty. So we will insert 24 to 2nd location, right? Now we move on to the next one. Right? So we move on to 61. Right? So if I move on to 61, then 61 mod 11 would give me 6. Right? So we will move on to the 6th location and see if it is empty or not. No, it is not. So if it is not empty, that means a collision has occurred. Right? A collision has occurred. Now we have to take the help of the secondary hash function. So the secondary hash function is h of k comma I, and this will be h prime of k plus I mod m. This is what it is, right? So we have to start I with 1, because when we will put I equal to 0, this hash function will function like a primary hash function which is already been computed and it resulted into 6, which is a collision. So we will start with I equal to 1, right? So if I is equal to 1, h of 61 comma 1. So h prime of k, you know it is 6. So 6 plus 1 mod 11, right? So what is the value? 7. 7 mod 11 is obviously 7. So we move on to the location 7 to see if it is a sentinel value or not. Yes, it is a sentinel value. So we will obviously stop and insert 61 over here, right? So the value is 7. So we stop here and we insert 61 over there, right? So after this, we move on to the next key value. The next key value is h prime of 81. So h prime of 81 means 81 mod 11, which is basically 4. So if I go to the fourth location, yes, it is empty. So obviously I will put 81 over here, right? So now we move on to 92. So 92 means h prime of 92 equal to 92 mod 11, which is basically again 4, right? So if it is 4 again, then we have to go for the secondary hash function. So the secondary hash function h of k comma I will then be equals to h prime of k plus I mod m. So we'll start again with I equal to 1. So it is 92 comma 1 equal to h prime of k, you know it is 4 and there is a collision. So there is a collision. So it's 4. So 4 plus 1 mod 11. So obviously it is 5, right? So it is 5. So we'll go to the fifth location to see if it is empty or not. No, it is not. So we are going to increase the value of I, which is now 2. So it will be again 4 plus 2 mod 11, which is 6, right? So if I move on to 6, is it empty? No, it is not. So I will move on to h of 92 comma 3. So it will be 4 plus 3 mod 11, which is 7. So is 7 empty or not? No, it is not. Again a collision. So we will move to h of 92 comma 4, which is basically 4 plus 4 mod 11. So this will give me 8. Right? So we check whether 8 is empty or not. Yes, it is. So we are going to put 92 in 8th location. Okay. So now we move on to the next key value. The next key value is 69. H of 69, which gives you 69 mod 11, which is 3, right? So obviously you can understand, since it is 3, so it will not a free slot, so it will not find a free slot at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it will find a free slot at 9th location. So obviously if I go with h of k comma I, it will be h prime of k plus I mod m, right? So h of 69 comma 1, I will start I with 1, and the h prime of k, obviously it is 3, which is a collision, right? So the value 3 is added with 1 mod 11. So obviously it will generate a value of 4, which is again a collision. We increase the value of I to 2. So 3 plus 2 is 5. So the next value is 5, which is again a collision. We increase the value of I to 3. So it's 3 plus 3, 6. 11, 6 mod 11 is 6 again, which is again a collision. So we increment I to 4. So when we increment I to 4, we get 3 plus 4, 7 The resultant value is also 7, which is again occupied. So there's again a collision. So we increase the value to 5. So obviously now the value is 8, which is again a collision. So we increase the value to 6. So 6 plus 3, 9. So it is the 9th location. 9th location is empty. Yes, it is. So we are going to put 69 in 9th location. So obviously you can understand the way the linear probing works when there exists a collision or when there happens a collision, and how that collision is being resolved. So obviously if now 69 has to be if 69 has to be retrieved, then the hash function primarily will generate 3. Now after that we are basically performing a linear search one after the another until and unless we find 69. This particular search can become a very time consuming process. If I add 2 new values to the existing string like 66, and this one will be 67, right, and this one will be 77. If I include 3 more values to the existing set of values, let's see what happens. Right. So obviously you can understand that if I consider 66, then 66 mod 11 will give you 0. So obviously you're going to put 66 over here, right? It's clear. Now if I take 67, then 67 mod 11 will give you a value of 1. So you're going to put 67 over here. But now when you're going to insert 77, it will again put you, the primary hash function will generate a hash value of 0, which is already occupied. That means you have to go all through the entire array and find the location which is the free slot available in the last location. So this is the worst case that can happen, right? So if you are following this process in order to insert 77 in the last location by examining each and every location, that means you are actually comparing all the n different locations. This is the worst case. In the worst case, the complexity of the hash function will then be close to the linear search, which is big O of n. So obviously the worst case scenario should be avoided, but in some cases it happens, and in some cases it happens, and obviously in those cases this hashing technique will then not be preferred, because if I have to perform a mathematical formula and then I have to traverse all the locations to reach the last location of the hash table, it's better to use linear search, because there is no such kind of mathematical formula that we are going to invest our time in. So obviously this is the worst case scenario, and obviously after we insert 77 over here, if I insert 77 over here, now if someone wants to retrieve 77, he or she has to follow the same process. He or she is basically comparing all the locations of the arrays in order to search 77, which is the last, which is residing currently in the last location of the hash table. So obviously then it becomes like a linear search, which is basically big O of n. The linear search complexity is big O of n. So it's better to perform linear search than to use linear probing in such kind of set of values. When we have completed the example of linear probing, now we have to understand what is the main disadvantage of linear probing. So this linear probing is all good, there is no bad in it, until and unless we encounter a problem which is known as primary clustering. What is this problem? We have to understand it first. So before we have inserted 77 over here in the 10th location, right, after probing each and every location of the hash table, this location was empty, right? So when 77 was divided by 11, we get the remainder as 0, right? So when 0 is the remainder, then it has to cross each and every memory location so as to reach the final location, which is the empty location. The locations which are basically filled up are basically forming a kind of cluster, right? This cluster length keeps on increasing as the collision increases, because when the collision increases, or when there is a collision for a certain key value, what we do in a linear probing is that we search for the next location, and this searching moves on as we continue, until and unless we find a free slot. This free slot is obtained after we cross a cluster, right? This cluster is what? This cluster is full of data values which are already occupied in the next locations after the location where the collision has first occurred. Now, what happens is that when the particular hash function results into a index value 0, so this is resulted from a primary hash function. Now, all the locations after the primary hash function, generates an index value from this location till this location. The entire block is a cluster. So until and unless we cross this block, we are not able to find the next free slot. This block keeps on increasing as on when the collision increases in our hash function, right? Because if you take that, if the hash table is not of size 11, it is of size say 21 or 23, it is of size 27, something like that, then again then 77, after placing in 10th location, there can be another element which is 88. So 88 will also again correspond to 0th hash location. Again 0th hash location is not empty. So again it has to cross the entire cluster, but now the cluster size has increased by 1. Right? So this cluster size will keep on increasing as the collision increases, because in linear probing, whenever a collision occurs, we actually probe the next location after the location that was generated by the primary hash function and try to find the next free slot. If the next free slot is available, we insert that key value in that free slot. Otherwise, the search is continued. So when a free slot is found, that free slot is found after we have crossed that entire block which is already occupied by previous data values. That block of memory is termed as a cluster, and this particular clustering increases as the collision increases in our hash function. So this is a kind of hurdle that an element has to cross each and every time a collision occurs in the primary hash function, right? The time required to cross each cluster also becomes huge, and this particular problem is termed as primary clustering.